How do Dominicans survive with a monthly salary is the question that I get often asked. If I don't get asked this question, I see people going back and forth in the comment section discussing the subject of Dominican wages. Although I agree, salaries are very low here in Dominican Republic, there are some things to consider when asked how do Dominicans survive on their monthly salary. But before we get started, let's discuss the two employment sectors here in the country. First, you have the public sector, which is the public institution. And then you have the private sector, which is private businesses. On the public sector, salary range depending on the institution that you work for, and salary vary because they are based on a ranking system and other factors. So for the sake of this video, we are gonna focus on the private sector because their job and salary follows a more straightforward system than the government. So the big question is, what is the average salary in Dominican Republic? What is the minimum wage? And how often workers get paid? So let's get started with the average monthly salary in Dominican Republic, which is around 20,000 pesos, which is around 370 US. Salaries range from 5,000 pesos, which is around 91 US, to 88,700 pesos, which is around 1,600 US monthly. I would assume that somebody that is making 5,000 pesos monthly is working a part-time job in a minimum wage position. I can even imagine anybody nowadays making 5,000 pesos monthly in any job. So now let's talk about minimum wage. And the way the minimum wage is determined is depending on the size of the company and their annual revenue. And this minimum wage can fall between 11,000 pesos, which is 200 US, and 20,000 pesos, which is 370 US monthly. And the country is expecting to raise the minimum wage by 19% by next month of April. With that being said, here is a breakdown of how much people earn in percentage regarding salaries. 5% of the people earn 39,300 pesos or more. 10% of people earn 30,700 to 39,300 pesos. 20% of the people earn 12,000 pesos or less, and 65% of people earn 12,000 to 30,700 pesos. So as you can see, majority of the people make between 200 US and 550 US per month. So keep in mind, this is the average salary based on minimum wage. There are some variables that can change on how this is applied, such as if you have a high school diploma, if you have a degree, or how much experience you have. And the last thing, how often workers get paid. On the private sector, workers get paid every 15 days, and on the public sector, employees get paid the 25th of each month. So now the big question is, how in the world anybody can live off those salaries? So let's take a deep dive and tell you how it's done. So come close. Get you a Western Union mommy or Western Union papi, if that's how it's done. No, but seriously, I'm gonna use 3 examples using people that I personally know, like family members, that I know how much money they make monthly, and what is their overhead. That way you can have an idea of how they survive with these salaries every month. So on the first sample, I'm gonna use a family of 4 with a husband and wife that both work and have 2 teenagers kids. The wife makes 35,000 pesos, which is around 636 US, and husband makes 45,000 pesos, which is around 818 US. For combined household monthly income is around 80,000, or it is 80,000 pesos, which is around 1,454 US. Their rent is 20,000 pesos, utilities 2,000 pesos, internet 3,000 pesos, which comes to 25,000 pesos for their overhead, which leave them with 55,000, around 1,000 US for the rest of their expenses, like healthcare, food, gas, car insurance, and phone. I would have to assume that from that 1,000 that they have left over, they use 50% to cover the rest of the expenses. And then you have 50% that you can use to enjoy yourself or to enjoy themselves, which is a pretty decent amount for an average Dominican person. Now we're gonna talk about example number 2, which is husband and wife and 2 young adult kids. The husband makes 20,000 pesos, around 370 US. Both gigs work. One makes 35,000, which is around 636 US, and the other one makes 30,000 pesos, which is 545 US. The wife doesn't work. The combined monthly household income is 95,000 pesos, which is around 1,727 US. The rent is 20,000 pesos, utilities 2,500 pesos, and the internet 3,000 pesos, which is lived in with 69,500 pesos, which is around 1,263 US for the other expenses. And again, on this second example, if you use 50% of the leftover to pay the rest of your bills that you have, you will be left over with half of that, which is around 600 US, which is again, is a decent amount of money for an average family to enjoy themselves. And now we're gonna move on to the third and last example, which is the single person living alone. This person makes 15,000 pesos, which is around 272 US per month. The rent is 12,000 pesos, which is 218 US. The utility is 1,000 pesos, which is around $18, and no internet. So the overhead is 1,300 pesos, which is lived in with 2,036 US for other expenses. As you can see, this person will need help. What is left over is not enough to survive on. And there are a lot of situations like the last example, but there are also a lot of situations like example number 1 and number 2. When people hear that Dominican makes between 400 and 500 US per month, they immediately start thinking, how can they survive when my rent here in the US alone is 1,500 US? It is all relative depending on the cost of living. I'm not saying the wages could not be better, but what I'm saying is don't think that every Dominican is destitute because they are telling you how much they make without putting it in perspective. Take in consideration that a combined household income is ideal for most situations in any country, especially here in Dominican Republic, especially because what we just spoke about, the wages, and second, because most people don't have 2 jobs. And also, you need to take in consideration how households in Dominican Republic are. Let's take, for example, like in the US, and I usually put US as an example because that's the only country that I have experienced besides Dominican Republic, and I'm talking about my own experience, not nobody else's experiences. But like in the US, when most kids get to 18 and they go to college, they get on their own to get their own struggle. But here in Dominican Republic, most kids don't get out of their house until they get married. So with that being said, if the kids start working, it will be a combined income for the entire family. And what about those where no one's working in the household? Well, yes, we do have those cases, or we do have many cases like that. And those people need help. And in this case, I will have to assume that they're getting help from a family member or someone in the household have a informal job from their home, let's say like selling clothes or food. But those are not the ones that I want to talk about today. Today, I want to focus on the working class Dominicans and how do they survive. So I hope this shed a little light on this topic. So having said that, now I want to share a few careers and how much money they make. But keep in mind, these are entry-level positions. Because I'm gonna give you an example. Like, I don't know, I was reading something the other day that someone was saying that they made, or they know a doctor, they make $1,200 a month. And you have to take in consideration when you hear this situation is that it's gonna depend in a lot of things. Like somebody, it is an entry-level doctor working in a hospital, probably would make $1,200. But somebody that have their own practice, or somebody that work in multiple hospital or clinic, it's not gonna make $1,200. Ain't no way that somebody gonna make that little amount of money. It is another example, like if you made somebody that's a lawyer, it's not the same thing that they're gonna make if they work in a lawyer office, being a paralegal, or doing something entry level, as someone that have their own practice or work for a very reputable firm and make more money. So it's different things that you have to take in consideration when people tell you how much they make depending on their career. A CPA, $450 monthly. Civil engineer, $630. Doctor, $1,600. A lawyer, $700. Call center, $600. Manufacturer worker, $350. Architect, $800. Food server, $200. University professor, $1,800. Dentist, $1,200. HR manager, $650. And a nurse, $630. Grade school teachers, $400. And again, these are examples of career and entry-level payment. And again, this is no a career for people that have their own practices and their own business. These are entry level working for a company. Let me put you an example of people, for example, that I know. I have two brothers that are engineers. One have his own business that he gets his own contracts, and of course he's not gonna make $630 per month. And I have the other one that worked for a bank as an engineer, and he is in a tech instruction, even though he don't make whatever he said there, because the example that I gave you was for an entry-level person, and he's not an entry-level. He has been in the same job for about 3 years, and of course he make more than that. But just to give you an idea of how much they can start up and how much they make. Again, I hope that this was helpful. And this is what I have for right now. Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and also share. And I will see you in my next one. Bye. How do Dominicans survive with a monthly salary is the question that I get often asked. Yeah. But before we get started, let's discuss the two employment sectors here in the country. The first one you have, the public sector. With the public sector, oh my God, salary, okay. So let's get started with the average monthly salary in Dominican Republic, which is around 20,000 US, which is all the, I can say perspective. So just leave it like that.
Say it, try it again.
Perspective.
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 When you say it slow like that, you do.
Perspective. But you plug it in. Perspective. Okay. Do you understand?
I understand your perspective.
Okay, anybody can understand my perspective. Let me say the other part.